What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. Today we're going to take a look at the Powkiddy RGB10Max3. Whew, that's a mouthful. This is an open source Linux device that was launched without an official operating system. Hopefully we have one now. We'll talk about that more. And we're also going to take a look to see if this is just a run-of-the-mill RK3566 device or if this is something special. Come along. All right, let's get started. This is everything that comes in the box minus the device itself. You have a USB Type-C charging cable, and you also have word paper that has very few words on it. That really just talks about charging. There's one little section right here that talks about charging, and it's not exactly correct. So we will discuss that more as we go through this device. If you happen to buy this for the case, you are going to be pretty disappointed because this is not even your run-of-the-mill case. This is probably the cheapest case I've ever seen on a handheld. That doesn't discount the handheld at all. It's just the case that it comes with. Though Powkiddy was pretty smart. They know me well. They did send me 2 screen covers, which is fantastic. Now here we have the RGB10Max3. This is an open source device which finally got an operating system and then lost the operating system and now might have it again. This came stock with JELOS that apparently Powkiddy just changed the dates on. Then JELOS team got together and they actually made an official build for it, which is fantastic. And what I can only assume was because of the whole Yuzu thing, as everybody was getting a little skittish in the emulation market, JELOS decided they weren't going to support devices for manufacturers anymore, or the RK3566 chipset that's in here. That would also include your RGB30, which is a very popular handset by Powkiddy, with its 1x1 design and the ability to do Pico 8 on there pretty well. They're probably single-handedly keeping Pico 8 alive just with the RGB30, which actually Pico plays really well on this device as well. We can take a look at a couple games if you want to. After JELOS' announcement that they were going to make an operating system and made it official for this device, they decided that they weren't. After that, they actually just did do what might be the final update for this device, which is probably okay, and why I feel comfortable reviewing it now. This is a pretty solid build. You don't necessarily need software updates going forward, but I have a feeling that because this is open source, the community will get behind this, because the 3566 chips in general are pretty popular, almost overly popular, and it's not just from Powkiddy. There's going to be some developers out there who own them who are probably going to want the support. So I think that we're probably going to be okay there. Before we get too far into the weeds, let's go over the I/O on this device real quick. Like we always do, we're going to start at the top here. We do have a power button, a reset button, an HDMI mini hole, and a volume down and up, which are backward. Word to the wise when you get this. If you think you're turning the volume down, you're probably turning it up because it's the opposite of everything in the Western world's volume keys. You do have your shoulder buttons, which are stacked, and they're actually, for a Powkiddy device, pretty quiet. Powkiddy devices are known for being obnoxiously loud. Not a lot of shake in comparison to some Powkiddy devices either, because these devices tend to have loose buttons, so that's pretty awesome. So we finally got some good quality build on some shoulder buttons from Powkiddy. On the back here, we have nothing but screws to open the device and a beautiful battery back there that you can see. Woohoo! This does have some pretty good ergonomics for it being shaped and feeling like a brick prior to putting it in your actual hands. We did the top. We'll do the bottom next. Down here, you're going to have your 2 1-watt cavity speakers, USB for charging, TF1 and 2, or SD1 and 2. This one here is going to be for your operating system. This one's for your games. You do have a 355 hole, and you do have an OTG port, which I'm having connectivity issues. I've tried a couple things with OTG. There might need to be one more update here for the OTG to work correctly. We're going to find that out, though. There's nothing on the sides of this device but these beautiful grips that we have on here. On the front here, we do have start and select. Right here, we do have a pretty stiff D-pad. Not the worst Powkiddy D-pad I've come across, but it's very touchy. This is an extremely touchy D-pad. It has a hard time holding diagonals when it's in like a down or up position. It's good for fighting games because it's quick into the diagonals. So if you're into fighting games, this is going to be a D-pad for you. In comparison to other D-pads, these edges are a little bit sharp, so just word to the wise. On your face buttons here, these do stick up a ways in comparison to a lot of devices. It didn't take me long to get used to it. It's just, I don't know why they're up so high. We have had devices lately where they've been falling below the shell, and maybe Powkiddy decided, you know what, we're going to go the opposite direction, and we're just going to make sure that we don't have any issues with these getting stuck. They do look really nice with the paint on them. They did a pretty good job there. We do have our switch style D-pads, which do have L3 and R3. We'll get her powered on real quick. While this is powering on, we might as well go through the specs of the device. A couple of these we've already gone over, but you know, we don't want to miss an opportunity to go over some of this stuff. So again, this is running an Open Linux with JELOS installed. It has a 5-inch IPS 1280 by 720 display. For this price category, that screen looks pretty nice. This is rocking an RK3566 ARM quad-core processor at 1.8 gigahertz, up to 60 hertz if you're running full FPS, which I believe is 60 on here. You do have LPDDR4 RAM at 1 gigabyte. You do have, obviously, the 2 memory cards that we talked about, up to 256 for external memory. Probably don't want to put that in the first one, unless you want to split that card with your games. Wi-Fi 2.4, which is a little disappointing. I mean, we didn't even get Wi-Fi 5, less Wi-Fi 6 in this device, and it does have Bluetooth, which does some support if you want to use this to consoleize it, use the HDMI port, and use this as your console for playing, so that's kind of nice. It does have a 4,000 milliamp battery in it. It takes about 2 hours to charge, and they say 8 hours of battery life. I'd would say, depending on what you're playing, you're probably gonna get 3, maybe 4 hours, depending on how hardcore the games are that you're playing on there. So just something to be aware of if you're playing higher end systems like PlayStation, stuff like that. If you want to get that kind of battery life and you're on a long road trip, you're gonna want to stick to your 8-bit systems for that. They do state that it has fast charging through USB. I don't think that's true. This thing is extremely picky, and we're gonna talk about that first, I think. But it has OTG support, which again, it flicks in and out. It kind of depends, but things I've tried to plug in here, whether it be a controller or a USB dongle to get faster Wi-Fi, it seems like it cuts in and out quite a bit. And then obviously that 355 jack. Let's start off by talking about the charging on this device. I don't know if it's a software issue or what it is, but this does support C2C charging. I wouldn't recommend trying it because it really depends on your charger. I actually have 2 of the exact same charging bricks and sets of cables. It'll charge on one of them and not the other. And the one that it does charge on, the battery meter never moves. So say it's at like 43%, you'll go back 2 hours later, it'll still say 43% until you unplug it. It doesn't know when it's fully charged because then you unplug it and it goes to 100%, which is a little scary. Like if you were to go out of town and just leave this thing plugged in, that battery is just going to keep taking power because it doesn't realize that it's fully charged. So just something to be aware of. Now, if you do charge it like you would any of your other retro handhelds that don't support C2C charging and you just do type A to type C, it's not going to be a big deal because that's regulated power, unlike C2C. So I just tried it once just to see if it would work, and it did, and it charged it fully, and it actually stopped charging when it was fully charged. So I was pretty happy with that. Moving right along, so we do now have an official operating system for this. It is running JELOS, which is one of my favorite of the Linux operating systems for these devices. It's kind of another fork when they all kind of forked off. You got JELOS, ArcOS, and a few others. Just Enough Linux is just another operating system similar to those. One thing that's nice about Just Enough Linux is they do give you a plethora of options that you might not see in others under your settings. So if you want to set up your retro achievements, if you want to see your achievements, all that kind of stuff, you can do that right here without actually having to go into RetroArch, which is really nice. You just go in here, it'll show you exactly what games you're playing, which ones have achievements, which ones are on this device itself, so you can keep playing them on here, or if you've got to go to a different device, they're grayed out, or you can just add them to the device. Just remember that you typically have to use the same or similar ROM, but that works out pretty well. You do get lots of UI choices. You can change your theme, stuff like that. I think I'm running, I don't know, just the regular system theme right now, but you do have options there. You can also download themes, which is pretty awesome. You can configure it to your own as well, just like a lot of these other operating systems out there. But if you're new to the game, this might be fun for you. You have your controller and Bluetooth settings. So like I said, you can use this to consoleize through your HDMI mini and into your TV and put multiple controllers on it and play together. Wi-Fi isn't the worst on here, but at 2.5, you're going to find yourself not wanting to play streaming games. So like I try to hook up Moonlight on here and stream off my computer. It's not choppy at all. It's actually very smooth, but it's very slow. And I can see on here, I could be 3 moves ahead versus what's on the actual computer itself. Not something that I would recommend. This is something I tried using a Bluetooth dongle for. It couldn't stay connected. It just kept dropping and going back to the 2.5. One other thing I have noticed with the network on this as well is sometimes when you restart the device, it won't connect back to the network until you enable and disable it again. Now that's going to be a software thing, and hopefully we get another update from JELOS, and if not them, somebody else in order to fix that problem. But that's something that we're going to have to be looking for in the future. There are still a few things that need to get cleaned up on here, but it is nice that they have an official build on here now. It runs way better than it did out of the box. I will put a link down on my thingamabob if you need to download the newest version of JELOS for this. I would also recommend saving a copy to your computer in case JELOS decides that they really aren't going to support this device going forward, because when they made a decision a couple weeks ago not to support it, they pulled all the 3566 devices completely off their GitHub, and you didn't have access to those files anymore. So save a file. Once you save it, you have it forever. I'm sure the others will show up in different repositories around the internet, but right now, the easiest way to do it is, since the file is available as of filming this, you will be able to save that to your computer, and you can use that moving forward. I have so many things I want to go over in this video, and I really don't want to make it long. So we're going to talk about a few things right here as far as the overall device itself. Now that we got the operating system out of the way, it feels like a brick. It is just a square device. If you look at it, not only is the D-pad square, but everything on here is pretty much square. I don't know who designed the ergonomics on this though. For picking up a cinder block, this thing actually feels really good to play. And this by far is, in my experience, out of all the Powkiddy devices I've reviewed, the most sturdy device Powkiddy has ever made. I mean, this thing doesn't tweak, it doesn't move, it's solid, it doesn't bend, it doesn't creak. You know, you have those problems with a lot of them, and somehow they still made it extremely ergonomic to hold on to. I've got decent sized hands, so not all my hands fit behind the device to play. When my kids play with it, yes, they actually can kind of fit all back there, but I found it's actually just really comfortable just resting on my fingers anyways, and I can play this for long periods of time. In comparison to a lot of other Powkiddy devices, I'd put this right up in the top 5 for ergonomics for sure. They did come out with that X55, which has the same chipset and 1 more gig of RAM and a 5.5-inch screen. That one does have decent ergonomics as well, but I honestly think this one's a little bit more comfortable to hold on to just because of the way the bumps are on the back. And they're even reinforced, which is something you never see from Powkiddy. Normally they would have just left a bubble there. Now these are digital triggers. They use just switches. The weird thing about this is there is really no play. It's either on or off. They spring back pretty good, As you can see, they're pretty springy, and there's very little travel. So it would be good for some games and bad for others. You do also have micro switches here on the top for your shoulder buttons, which is pretty common. But as I stated before, these sound way better than any other Powkiddy device I have ever used before. So they are not loud. You won't be afraid to play this in public and have people looking at you like you're actually pulling the trigger if you're playing a shooter. I was planning on putting Hall Effects joysticks in here. Then I saw a post from Retro Gaming Emulator where these shoulder buttons are held on by two pretty fragile plastic brackets, and he broke his, and now I don't know if I want to break mine and risk it. It might be a project coming up. We'll see what other parts I can find for this, and if we can't tweak the OS a little bit so that we can make it a little bit more unique. But I do enjoy doing those videos for you guys, so we might see something like that coming forward. If I want to risk it, I might just have to order another one in case I break it. This does have one of the brightest screens of the Powkiddy devices, and actually of just handhelds in general. If we take a look here, we will turn up the brightness. You could play this outside easily. Kind of hard to tell with my lights on here, but it also gets really dark. And the cool thing about that, if you play it right here at 10% darkness, even though it looks kind of dark on here, it looks perfect if you're playing in a non-lit room. So like when you go to bed at night, if you don't want to make your partner upset, you can turn the thing right off. So the amount of brightness on here is insane. I put it on 7 for this video just so you guys can see what I'm doing. Sometimes if you turn it up too much, they get washed out. So didn't want to do that, but this is a very, very nice bright screen. The aspect ratio here is about perfect for Game Boy Advance games, which is pretty common now amongst emulation handhelds. And I started playing my entire Game Boy Advance library. Even though I bought all these cartridges when I built my Game Boy Macro, I'm really starting to play my Game Boy Advance games now that I've put them on my hard drive and am playing them on systems like this. And most of the box art's going to be available out there. This does do scraping, so that's kind of nice. If you're going to play Game Boy Advance, you kind of have to play Alien Hominid. I didn't know this was a Game Boy Advance game till recently, so I went and found a cartridge for it. But initially, I had played this game on Nintendo Switch. There's 2 versions of it for the Switch that I had. I had no idea that this was a Game Boy Advance game. So I'm glad that it's on here because it's a really fun game to use for testing and emulating and stuff. You can really get a good feel for how the system's going to run. I'm not sure if this new mic is going to pick up on the game or not. Game Boy Advance is definitely a system that's good for this. Just to get a couple knocked out here for you. We could do a gameplay video at some other time. I just wanted to get this device out there because I've had it for weeks and I feel comfortable now that there is more or less an operating system for it. One thing with JELOS too is you don't need function buttons. It's just select an X. You get right into your RetroArch menus. If you want to exit, just go and quit. The other way you can quit a game is if you just hit select start and it will also quit. DS does okay on here as well. So for DS, if you want, you can have the track up or you can just get rid of it. Runs at full speed, runs really well. You can probably up the resolution on here as well. And if you need to know where you are, the right shoulder button here, and you can keep changing everything around. But anyways, that's your DS experience, not too bad. So this is F-Zero on N64. It does run at full speed. If you keep anything in N64 at a 240p resolution, it will run just fine. As you can see here, this thing is running full speed. You could probably get away with running this particular game at a 480, which I'm going to be honest with you, with a lot of emulators these days, that's almost unheard of just because they just can't handle it. Let's give it a try here. So again, you're going to hit select X. We're going to go to core options. We're going to go down here. We're going to put it up to a 480 resolution and see what happens. Yep, she's still going. Now, you're not going to get this from every game, and F-Zero is one of the harder games to run, but it is doing just fine here. We'll try out another N64 game here. Again, it's just select start. It'll exit. All right, we'll check out our settings here real quick. We are running Doom. We'll go into our core options. We are still at 480. We'll see if it can handle this. I have no idea what shoots on here. It's a really hard game to demo if you're not far into it because all you can see is darkness, but we're getting there. I'd say this works pretty well. Now, this isn't the hardest game to emulate by any means, but you know, tricky on the Switch, this isn't doing so bad. Wasn't paying attention. All right, let's try something else out. That was a very good drift. It went right into the wall and then started drifting. All right, here is PS1 on PCSX rearmed. Runs like butter, which we would kind of expect it to anyways because it's PS1, but a year ago that wouldn't have been the case. So it's good to see that, you know, these guys are keeping true to being able to use it here with the JELOS build on here. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less, but you know, whatever. All right, we're gonna pass this guy and then we're gonna change games. Oh, maybe not. Hey, jerk off, trying to change games here. Trying to switch systems. I need to pass you first though. I don't want to end in 7th place. I like even numbers. Boom. All right, let's try something else out. Most games on Dreamcast here are gonna run best at 480 with widescreen hacks on. I'm actually running this at 600 right now, just to see if it'll go, and it seems like it's going just fine, but some of the games are a little touchy with this, but this game tends to be a good one to test emulation on for Dreamcast. I'd say probably not every game's gonna play, but pretty much every game will play. No, I missed it. I'm so bad at this game, and I've never gotten past this beginning. I know I've said that before, but man, I've literally never got past the beginning of this thing. Oh, and then I missed that thing altogether. All right, whatever. Yeah, I mean, the graphics, everything are fine right here, so I think we're going to be all right. So on this game in particular, I'm running at 600 with widescreen Hexon. On which emulator? It's a good question. Very good question. Thank you for the question. We are running it on Flycast. I think that this one will be okay there for you. Let's try something else out. No dips, no scuffles, or mid-race too, so this should be the most taxing that this game gets. So we are at 600p, same settings as before with the widescreen Hexon. I'd recommend going that route for sure. I honestly didn't think anything would play over 480. Some of these 3566 devices don't get over 480, but if you stick at 480, you can usually play pretty much the entire Dreamcast catalog. So with this being able to play at 600, I feel like it's going to open up some space for some of those others that maybe don't play very well on some other devices to be able to open them up and play them at 480 at least. All right, on to the next one. Well, I intended on pairing a controller for PSP. I'm not sure why it's not allowing me to pair. I was going to put it up on a screen for you so you could see what it was all about. Okay, so this has worked before I did the last update, so I'm not sure if that went bad during the update or if there's something I need to change here that I'm not thinking about right now. I will play around with it. When I make a follow-up video for this, I will have this working or not working, but at least we'll know whether it's going to work or not. All right, and I guess enough of monkey effing around with that thing. We're going to do some Pico 8 real quick. First off, what you're going to want to do after you install Pico 8 onto your device as far as your account goes, and if you don't know how to do that, maybe I'll make a how-to video coming up. It's a really easy thing to do. Pico 8 interests you. Once you have it all installed, you're just going to go in here to game settings. You're going to go down to the bottom here to where it says per system advanced configuration. You're going to go down to Pico 8 emulator, and you're going to choose Pico 8. Not Pico 8 RetroArch, but Pico 8, because after you put it all on there, you're going to want it to be able to go into Explorer. If you're not familiar with Explorer is, that's actually where you get to go and find games on Pico 8. And so you have this unlimited library full of games. When you go to Explorer, it looks something like this. So if you have your favorites set up, you'll see your favorites in here. You're using a Raspberry Pi build, so it actually downloads the stuff right to your device. I don't know that I've ever seen anything actually show up in my favorites. You can look through different categories, right? So like, what's your jam, work in progress, new, favorite. Jam is the one that's being voted on as being like the highest rated ones that are on there right now. And then you can just choose whatever game you want to play, and you might not know what it is before you start playing it. It's always kind of hard to tell, or not always, but sometimes it's kind of hard to tell what you're kind of getting yourself into. There's gonna be a lot of Tetris games and things like that on here. We got some shmups on here, stuff like that. No idea what this is. 5 days until the end of summer. Oh, I guess we're going fishing. How to fish. Oh, I'm so good at this. You just got to go whatever way the arrow points. I had that one. Something up here looked interesting. Oh, look at the little butt. You can just eat butts. What'd you find on Pico 8? Oh, just game where you eat butt, you eat butts, lots of butts. Turn around. Oh, this is obnoxious. Woo! Next level, please. I ate a lot of butts. That should give you a pretty good feel for just some of the stuff that's on Pico 8. It's kind of a fun little system because when you look at the menus, you just have unlimited access, thousands of games on here. And even you can make games for Pico 8 if you want to. So if you don't have Pico 8 yet, this might have just gone over your head. But if you do, go on, goes right into JELOS using the Raspberry Pi build, real easy. And then you'll have access to all your stuff. Moving right along. We're trying a little burnout on PSP using PPSSPP. Currently, our settings are apparently don't exist. We're doing 2 times resolution because everybody kind of knows how this game works on here. So we'll just take a little look here quick. Oh man, that guy took off. I don't remember what there it is. Oh no, so quick. So that's the only time I've seen it do any kind of slowdown there, and that was in the crash. And that actually, I feel like, happens in Burnout anyways. But I'd say this looks pretty good. I don't know that we would be able to stay at 30 going to 3 times, but we're going to find out. I don't think this is going to work, but we're going to try. No, maybe. Once it renders here, let's see what happens. No, 20 FPS at 3 times resolution. And you're pretty close to the screen. I don't know that that's necessary anyways. Make sure it goes back, then right back to 30, so guess that answers that question for us. Oofta. All right, let's try another game out real quick. Thought maybe I'd have a fighting game of some sort that I put on here, but apparently I didn't do that. Why didn't I do that? I actually had a hard time with this Death Jr. game before, so we'll see. It doesn't run at all on the M17, I can tell you that. That's running on a 7051 chipset, so that's nothing like this. Oh, yeah. I think I can figure out jumping. I need to find somebody to hit. Yeah, this game works just fine. So this game doesn't always work on modern devices here, so this chipset seems to be holding up pretty good. I mean, you'd think that this would, but you just never know these days. A lot of it has to do with optimization, which is the beauty of the JELOS on here. Hopefully we can get another build from them and keep it going. It's a bummer that I couldn't show you the controller working. I'm not sure what was going on there. I used a different controller the other day, but this wasn't even showing me the option to pair the controller, so I don't know where to go with that, but I will play with it some more and see if I can't figure it out for you. So we'll go through a couple of my pros and cons real quick on this device. I will start with the cons. That controller not hooking up was kind of a con. Also, it's hit or miss on using the HDMI out. Some of my cables work, some don't, so something to look out for. You may or may not be able to get the HDMI to work hooking it up to a monitor. I was going to demo that for you, but I didn't remember which one worked, and I didn't have the time to sit down and go through all my cables again. Also, the USB is really picky about charging. I would just stick to an A to C charger. I know it says you can do C to C with fast charging. It only takes about 2 hours to charge it just on a regular charger. I would just stick with that because it works, and as far as I can tell, it works every time. It does still do that stupid thing where it doesn't tell you how charged it is, though, if you leave the device on while you're charging it. But if you do turn it off, it seems to power off the device while charging. So I would go that route and charge it with it powered down. And another con of mine, I just wish that Powkiddy would come up with a consistent D-pad. This one's not bad. It's not terrible, but it is a little sharp, and it just seems like they try to put a different D-pad on every device lately. Some of them are kind of similar. This one's a little bit different than any of the other ones they've had lately. So I'd like to see them start putting a consistent D-pad on. That would be fantastic. And also if they could change the order of the volume up and down buttons, that'd be cool too. That's just me being nitpicky. Some of the things I do like, this is the quietest shoulder buttons I've ever heard on a Powkiddy device. The micro switches they used in here are really soft. Sounds really good. The joysticks work okay. They work like Switch joysticks for the most part. I do like the look of the paint on these buttons right here. I think that looks pretty slick. I also like for the fact that this thing is sturdy. I've never felt a Powkiddy device this sturdy. It feels like it could have been made out of metal. It's one solid frame, even though obviously it pieces together and we know that it comes apart. It just feels like it wouldn't come apart. And the fact that it's like that and it's really the shape of a brick, but yet it's still so ergonomic, they did such a great job making this comfortable, which is really freaking cool. Lastly, JELOS did a really good job getting some emulators to work that don't typically work or don't work well on 3566 devices. So I'm glad to see that here in this build. And hopefully they'll continue building forward. It's kind of a pro and a con because it's a con if they don't continue to build on it, but it's a pro if they continue to build on what they already have. I think they did a fantastic job here, and I'd love to see what they have going forward. Hopefully you got some takeaways out of this video. Maybe if you're looking at this device or if you're just kind of curious about it, maybe learned a little bit, maybe turned you onto the device. You never really know. But anyways, that's all I got for you today. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share this video with your friends because sharing helps grow the channel. I could use all the help that I could get. Also, don't forget to check out one of these videos on the side over here. YouTube says that you're going to like them, and I never go against YouTube because they seem to be right about everything. So I would take their word for it and just check one of them out, and I appreciate that. And again, there's another subscribe button just sitting there floating around on the screen. You know, if you get bored, if you got some value out of this, that'd be awesome. And if not, that's okay too. Thank you for stopping by. Anyways, that's all I got for you today. I'm out. Bye-bye.